Welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next. If you're not too careful, you just might learn something.
Hi there, and welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next, and if you're not too careful, you just might learn something. Now, I have to start off this video. This is going to be the third in our little sub part of our series or our playlist for the Ole Blue Restoration project. We just finished assembling our short block here, which consisted of putting our crank in, our pistons, rings, all that good stuff, and then installing our cam, the new cam gear, all that good stuff. And I posted some cam specs in the part 2 of the short block video, and user P. Muller on Ford6.com called me out and corrected me because I goofed it up, and so I didn't do my cam specs right, and apparently I didn't bother looking at my cam card for my RV10H cam because the specs that they list on the web page for Urson cams is incorrect. First of all, the stock cam specs I got were not necessarily wrong, but I didn't use the right ones. The ones I put, like the lift at like 250, and that's actually at the cam lobe, not at the valve. The Urson cam, I put the lift at the valve. So the 250 you have to multiply times 1.6, which is your rocker arm ratio, which gets you to around 0.4, or the actual stated cams or lift spec for a stock cam is 0.397, which is damn near 0.4. So that's where I borked that up. And the duration specs on the Urson cam, like I said, are displayed incorrectly on their website for the RV10H. So basically what we've got is 192 degrees at 50 thousandths lift, or 50%, or 50 thousandths lift on the stock cam, and 208 on the Urson cam. And I'll post the new still right here. Okay, and of course both cams are 110 degree lobe separation angle. Now, your lobe separation angle is if you look at the intake and exhaust cam lobe, it's how far apart they are in degrees, like that. So thank you, P. Muller, for correcting me on that. And like I said, I'm not perfect, so if you catch me on something, call me out and I'll make sure I correct it. Because the whole reason I do these videos is, well, one, of course it's fun, but two, I want people to be able to refer to these videos, and yes, sometimes they're boring and they go on forever, but I'm covering everything. I'm not just making a eye candy, entertaining video that's, skips over a bunch of stuff that you might run into, like gotchas and things like that. So, if I'm gonna do it, I need to do it right. So, anyway, now, the one thing that you didn't see me do last time in the last short block video, and I'll double check it again here, is the thrust plate on the camshaft is 9 to 12 foot-pounds is the torque. So make sure that's right, and it's always a good idea. I use All Data DIY but you can get it from your Haynes manual or your Chilton's manual or whatever. But print you out a sheet that's got all the torque specs for everything. So that way you make sure you get everything tight the way it's supposed to, and you don't get it too tight. So now the only deviation we're going to have from this is that I'm putting an ARP head stud kit in here. So I'm going to go with what ARP tells me as far as the torque spec. So if it's different, I'm going to go with ARP because that's their head studs. They ought to know better, and they'll tell me where I need to be. So, all right, with all that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I had told y'all that I'm going to do a comparison between the two heads. I had to pull my 86 motor out of the chassis because I was using it to mock everything up. And so I pulled it out and took the head off, and I've got it over here, and I'm going to take my little phone camera over here and I'll go over and show you the difference in the valves and the porting job and all that stuff that we did. All right, so here is our new cylinder head compared to the old cylinder head, and we've pretty much gone from a 1.78 intake and a 1.5 something exhaust up to 1.84 intake and 1.6 exhaust using Chevrolet small block valves. Now, this is a later style 86 or 85 or 86. The block casting is identifies it as an 86, and this is the head that was on it. And it has the large port push rod holes and then pedestal mount rocker arms. But I'm wondering if this is, I guess this is a carb head because combustion chambers appear to be the same. I know there's probably a few cc's difference. I have a hard time determining from the forums because I think they said that the chamber shape could be heart-shaped or kidney-shaped. So, not so sure about that. But this one had a carb on it. So, but it's pedestal mount rockers, and it's got the big push rod holes. So, not so sure if it has the detonation proclivities of the later 87 and later EFI heads, but because that chamber looks identical to the 82. But no matter at this point now, I've already got the this is our head that we're going to be using. We wanted to keep with the original, so we're good to go there. And I'll flip the heads over and show you the difference in the springs we put in. And you can see on the stock head, you have just a single spring and your valve stem seal inside. Of course, this head has the smog ports on it too. Our 82 head doesn't. But we've got the spring with the damper inside it, and that will help. Also has the better valve stem seals, so that will help protect this thing from floating the valves in case she gets a little frisky with it, because we certainly have enough induction and exhaust and cam to where it can hypothetically wind out that far. So no harm in having some better valve springs in there. And then, of course, we've done a good deal of port work on this head, and we've just really smoothed everything out real nice. You can see a stock head is just raw casting. It's real rough. And this, we've polished it all out nice and smooth. And opened it up here and there a little bit, smoothed out the bowls to make the the contour and the flow better, we hope. Of course, I don't have a flow bench, so I wouldn't know for sure. But I'm almost positive this thing's going to have a pretty good seat of the pants difference feel in when you're driving it. So, all right. Now let's get this head on the motor and get ready to start degreeing our cam. I've decided to go ahead and put a set of ARP head studs on this. I would recommend this on any straight 6 engine because you've got such a long piece of cast iron here, and it can mean the difference between a head gasket or not. If you busted a hose or something like that, because as soon as it gets hot, the head's going to try and lift in the middle, and you've only got 4 bolts per cylinder, and with that, you've got here in the middle, you're sharing 2 of those bolts between 2 cylinders. So good set of head studs, just a good investment, I think. For the Ford 306, we're looking at part number 1524001 with and that's ARP. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's anybody else on the planet that makes those. I would strictly go with them. You're going to get your cool little sticker put on wherever. I always call these go fast stickers because they're guaranteed to make your vehicle go faster if you put them on. Most importantly, documentation and directions. Okay, I know we're all guys here for the most part, or maybe girls, but this doesn't apply to you. Guys have a hard time reading directions, apparently. So it's a machismo thing. We don't need to read no darn directions. So this has a special notice in here for regarding warranties or exchanges, and most importantly, it has the installation method for the head stud kit. You want to follow this, okay, to the letter. And you're going to see me, I'm going to look stupid because I'm going to be sitting here going, and then I'm going to be doing what it says. So, this is something you want to do once, okay, and that's it. You don't want to have to go back through it because you screwed it up. Now, the head stud kit is going to come with some assembly lubricant. This is very important, okay, especially because they're going to reference it in the instructions. And then you're going to have washers, nuts, and of course the studs. Now, these studs are 7/16 of an inch, and you're going to notice that the threads are different on each end, okay? The coarse thread end is what's going to go down into the block. Obviously, All right, if you try to put the fine thread in, they're not going to go in. Okay, duh. But hey, got to cover that. You know, apparently I don't know cam specs, so who am I to talk, right? So I'm just going to stay straight on the line, and I'm going to go right through the instructions here. These are 200,000 PSI strength studs. That's really good. I don't know what a factory head bolt is, but I'm sure it's not near that. So we're going to go with step number 1. Ensure proper thread engagement and accurate, or to ensure proper thread engagement and accurate torque readings, clean all threads in the block. Chase if necessary with ARP thread chaser. Okay? If you go back to my first episode in this little series here, when I was just starting to assemble the short block, what did I do? Okay, I went through with a tap and chased out all the threads for everything, not just the head bolts, but everything. And, you know, I also reminded everybody, don't get too cocky, because you can break a tap, and if you bust off a tap inside that motor, you're going to play hell getting it out. And that's exactly what I did, because I got too complacent and leaned on it, tap a little too much, and tink, it broke. And I was just darn lucky I was able to weld a nut on there and get it off, and get it back out. So, very important. All right, so we've done that. Clean and inspect all hardware prior to installation. Look for obvious defects or shipping damage, plus proper fit, length, and dimension. So, we've done that, okay? Checked out my washers, my nuts, these nuts, yuck, and the studs. Counted them, make sure I got plenty. There are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 studs. Okay, count to make sure you got 14 studs here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we are good. Now, step number 3 refers to another thing that I mentioned in my first video in this little series of the short block, is that if any of the cylinder head studs are going to protrude into a water jacket, okay, you want to make sure you lubricate the threads of the studs and use ARP thread sealer. That's very important, because water under pressure, as the coolant heats up, is going to try and push its way up through the little passage, the little spaces in between the threads on the stud and the threads in the block. The next step is going to be to screw the studs into the block hand tight only. Now, they specify that you do not put any type of lubricant or sealer on these. You just screw them in dry, hand tight only. All right? Hand tight does not mean you go after it with a pair of vice grips or jam nuts or anything like that and just wrench that puppy down in there. So you definitely don't want to do that. Now, before you get too far along on here, you need to remember that we've got our dowels here, the alignment dowels that line the head up, okay? And that's these little fellas here that got popped out of the top of the block, okay? You want to make sure you get those fellas in there. And what I'll do with those, I just use me a little plastic mallet and drive these bad boys in. these are very important because these are what aligns the head on top of the cylinder, meaning where the head gasket goes. You got little rings that seal around there. All that's very critical. So you want to make sure you have those dowels and you install them and use them. That is not a shortcut you want to take. So now we're going to go ahead and just run these puppies in. Now I hear some people complain, they'll say they don't like using the head studs because it makes the head difficult to take out later on if you should blow a head gasket or you have to remove the head. But to me, really, that doesn't wash because, you can take these studs out. Once you take the nuts and the washers off, they got a little hex head in here, and you can back those studs out and, and take them out to where, it's just the same as if you took a bolt out. So, I don't subscribe to that theory. I'll go with the head studs and make sure I've got, that extra clamping force on this long head, and I'll take that any day of the week. Now, one thing I didn't mention before is I made sure I wiped this surface down with a good lint-free rag and brake cleaner, especially after you put your pistons in and you've got your assembly lube and it's all gooky everywhere and all that. You want to make sure you clean all that off really good so that this surface is just as absolutely clean as it can be. And the one thing I have to say, this is a 40-year-old engine block, and they didn't need to surface the head surface or the mating surface here with the cylinder head. It was that dead flat. Now, I was thinking originally, well, I can get a little more compression by shaving this a little bit, along with in addition to what they cut the head, and, be careful of how thick a head gasket I use and all that. But, the highest you want to go on one of these is 9-to-1, okay? And with the later model EFI pistons and the, what we shaved, I think he took 20 thousandths maybe off the head. We're right there. So that's perfect. Maybe it's 8.9 or 8.95, something like that, roughly. All right, now we got our dowels, double check. Got our studs. All right, now let's put our gasket on here. Now, the kit that the machinist gave me, and I trust him more than I trust myself, was Velcro 260-1006. Okay. Now, the one that I had already purchased, which I'm going to have to take back, was a KS2330. So I'm not sure exactly at this moment what the difference is, but I'll look that up and I'll post whatever I find right here. One thing that's very important is you want to make sure that you look very carefully and look for any indication of front, top, anything like that. Now, with this gasket, it's pretty easy because it only goes on one way, okay? So, and the reason you can tell that is number one, you've got these two water jackets in the back right here, okay? And more importantly, you've got this one little hole right here that's only on one side of the block. So that makes it a no-brainer. You just drop this thing down and you're good to go. Easy peasy, as they say. You lay this down here. These Velcro gaskets, they don't require any extra sealer, anything like that, you put them on dry, torque them to spec, and you're good. Now, speaking of torque, the ARP head stud kit here recommends 3 equal steps using the manufacturer's specified pattern, torque pattern of, you start from the inside and work your way out, spiral, and you bring them up to 80 foot-pounds. All right, we'll soak our rag down real good with our brake clean. Now, I'm using a cotton, lint-free body shop rag here, but you can also use those cloth-like lint-free rags I was mentioning in my earlier video. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure our gasket mating surface here is nice and spiffy clean. We don't want any schmutz on here, no rust. Now I did put some WD-40 on here so that it wouldn't rust, building the surface rust, but you want to make sure you get all that off. So, plus any assembly lube that may have kind of gooped its way on there. You just want to make sure that that surface is just as clean as it can be. That's very important. Now, we want to make sure, of course, we put the cylinder head on right. We got our little bitty hole up here, which matches this. We got our 2 water jackets, which go back there. So that means I'm going to have to take this and, yeah, remember this cylinder head pretty darn heavy too. So if you have to, get you a friend to help. All right, make sure it sits down nice and flush. Make sure you didn't get cockeyed on your dowels, alignment dowels. Make sure they're all good. And we are, so that's good. Now, it's just something else that a lot of folks miss. And I can't really stress enough how important this is. Especially on this side, the manifold side of the head. You want to get in there and clean any schmutz out that the machine shop may have missed when they clean the head. Because you don't want to set your washers down on top of that and then have them then try and torque them on top of a bunch of grease and schmutz and stuff. Now that we've gotten all our schmutz out of here and made sure there's nothing in there and it's nice and clean, the next step is lubricate the stud threads, nuts, and washers with the ARP Ultra Torque Fastener Assembly Lube. You put your assembly lube on the washers and the nuts and the stud threads. And just a little dab will do it. And the important thing is when you're torquing them, you don't want them to bind. You don't want to feel any kind of drag. You just want them to torque up nice and smooth. Hey, lubricate the stud threads, nuts, and washers with our ARP Ultra Torque Fastener Assembly Lubricant. Then install the washers and the nuts onto the studs and tighten them hand tight. We're going to want to get some assembly lube on the threads and on the base of our nuts. And you don't want to completely schmutz all this stuff up. just put just a little light bit on there. Wipe this lube around on all these threads. And then go to our nuts. Now, it may seem like I'm dwelling on this for a bit, but this is really one of the most important critical aspects of installing this head gasket, and of course installing these head studs. You know, you've got to make sure you lube these properly so that they torque up, so that when that wrench clicks at 80 foot-pounds, that's actually what you have, not 160 or 60, because you know you had gook on the threads and it was hanging up your nut as it's trying to go down the stud. I mean, any number of reasons. But yes, this is one of the most critical steps. And you don't need to get stupid with this stuff. I mean, this is, it's a lubricant. You just need to get enough on there so that none of this stuff binds as we draw it up. You can always tell a graphite lubricant as it looks like a ground up pencil exploded on your hands. You feel that with that lubricant, man. They just spin on there, they're just as smooth as butter. We are going to go ahead and start torquing these in 3 steps. And I'm going to start at 50, then I'm going to go to like 65, 70, and then on up to 80. So I'm going to post the torque sequence here. And basically it's a bit of a clockwise / crisscross sequence with the main idea of just drawing the head down nice and evenly all the way across, starting from the middle and working your way out. So we'll start from here and take her up to 50. All right, let's take it up to 65 or 70 here. There we go. We'll go 65. How about that? All right. Now we'll take it up to our final step of 80 foot-pounds. Now they don't specify this in any book anywhere, but I always just kind of let it sit there for a minute. And then I'll go back over it again just to check and make sure our torque settings are there. Okay. All right. I'll call that good. Just wipe off any excess here, because you'll be cleaning this eventually anyway when you go to paint the head, or paint the whole motor for that matter. Of course, we don't need to worry about anything in here. Of course, I will wipe the excess off. Now we're just about ready to degree our camshaft.